Hey everyone, it's Aspen from GameView, and I'm going to show you how to make a 3D frog in 11 easy steps. Let's get started. Okay, so first things first, to get started, instead of hitting this general tab here, step number 1 is going to be hitting that sculpting tab and getting us into this sculpting mode. This is going to give us a nice high polygon resolution sphere that we get to use for everything else on our frog. So next step is I'm actually going to come out of sculpt mode. So step number 2, I'm going to come into object mode instead of sculpt mode. And now I'm going to go ahead and make sure I know where I am inside my object, kind of scroll out a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this sphere and put it all the way over here for right now. So step number 3 is now blocking out my frog. So this basic sphere that we started with, this is going to be its body. So because of that, I'm just going to duplicate it, and now I'm going to have a head area. Now it kind of looks a little strange, and that's because we want to fix up the body to kind of match the head. So I'm going to go ahead and get the scale tool. I'm going to scale it up, and on the green, kind of widen it out a little bit. And as you can see, my head kind of got a little off center, so I'm going to go ahead and absolutely fix that as well. So you kind of want everything to be a little mostly centered, because we're going to be using the symmetry tool later on when we start sculpting. Alright, so now that we got a good body and head, we're going to start blocking in those extra pieces. So those would be the legs and the hands. So to do that, I'm actually going to take the extra sphere that I duplicated over here, and I am going to duplicate it again and bring it right on over. Now I'm going to make this nice and small and tall to be nice and thin. Go ahead and rotate it to get that nice froggy area for the frog forearm. So kind of like how your shoulder and bicep. So this is going to be the frog bicep. Kind of like how you have biceps on your arms. These biceps are going to come right in. And I'm going to actually scale it up just a smidge, move it forward. Wonderful. I think this is looking like a good frog so far. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate my bicep and make it my forearm. So to do that, I'm just going to rotate it and scale it down just a bit. And now we have a forearm area. Make sure that these lovely pointing parts are touching, because those are our elbows. Maybe scale it up a little bit. Awesome. And now go ahead and we're just going to add a modifier to make this happen on the other side. So this is all still kind of in step 3. It's just a lot of parts to step 3. So this whole blocking out phase is one big chunk to a bunch of smaller chunks. So I'm going to get the blue wrench. I'm going to make sure I have my bicep selected. I'm going to click add modifier. I'm going to say mirror. And to make sure it mirrors off of my body, I'm going to get that little eyedropper and click on my body. And now I have one on each side. I'm going to do the same thing for the forearm. Beautiful. So now I have these lovely 2 little forearms. And next is going to be the back legs. So to make that even easier, I'm just going to duplicate my forearms and move them back here. Now frog legs are kind of a little silly. They kind of go splay out. So I'm going to splay these out, move them up. And I like to do a trick instead of using so many pieces for frog legs, because they're all a little different. I'm just going to duplicate the back legs that I already have. Rotate, bring them down a bit, do a little bit more rotating, And then scale on the red to make them nice and long. Because these are going to also come out and be our little toes in the end soon too. So it's kind of like a trick. All right, and now that we got those areas done, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that this all looks nice and spiffy. Now we get to start working on the hand parts. So to do that, I'm just gonna take my regular sphere that I still have over here, just hanging out on the side. I'm gonna duplicate that. I'm gonna bring it real nice and close to one of my arm areas. Scale it down. I'm gonna smush it so it's kind of nice and flat. Maybe make it a little bigger. And now I get to attach it to my forearm. So this is gonna be the palm area. Just like how you have palms, this will be the palm for our frog. And the same thing, I'm gonna make sure that I have a little mirror modifier on it so that it happens to go exactly where I need to be on the other side. Now we get to make fingers. So all we have to do here is duplicate the forearms, make them smaller, and we want 3 of these. So I'm not gonna make it too small because then it gets a little messy when it comes to sculpting. But I am gonna make sure that I have a good amount of them and rotate how appropriately needed. Because we don't want anything going too crazy. Alright, and then frogs have these little balls on the tips of their fingers. So I'm gonna just go ahead and again take that extra one that I have over on the side, move it in, scale it down, and make sure it's all nice and attached to one of my fingers here. Again, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger than I think I need because it's gonna get smaller when we start the sculpting phase. So now that I got that one, make sure that it gets mirrored onto the other side. So every time I mirror, I'm making sure it's mirroring off of my body so it's at all the same place. Duplicate, bring that over to the other finger. Gotta do some fixture moving. And last finger. Ooh. All right, so now I got some good fingers and now I need toes. So I'm actually going to take one of these fingers and little ballpoint areas. I'm going to shift select both of them and I'm going to join them together so it becomes one object. That way I can duplicate it and move it all the way back here for toes. And just like at the fingers, we need 3 toes. Ooh, I'm going to make sure that they're at the same place. So our toes are going to be kind of nice and long. I'm going to make these a little smaller than my finger ones because I usually end up getting them stuck together. Awesome! And then don't forget, we want to make sure that we see them touching the leg that we just made because they should be all connected or else we'll run into some problems later. Alright, so frog is looking really good. I'm gonna go ahead, at this point we're gonna start heading into part 4. So we're gonna go ahead into step 4, and step 4 is applying those mirror modifiers that we just added. If we don't apply them right this second, then when we go to sculpt, they're gonna be all over the place. So to apply a modifier, we just go over, there's a little down arrow, and we hit apply. We want to make sure that every single mirror modifier gets applied. Okay, so now that that's taken care of, we can go ahead and do into step 5, where we combine all of our pieces together. So I am going to hold down Shift and I am going to select all of my froggy parts. All right, now that they're all selected, they should all have this orange hue around them. We're gonna ignore the extra ball that we have out here. We just don't need it right this second anymore. Those will be for the eyes later on, so we'll just leave them over there. So we're gonna go to Object and hit Join, and all of our lovely frog pieces should be together. Step 6 is starting the sculpting phase. So that's my favorite part. I'm gonna go back from Object mode into Sculpt mode, and everything turned into different colors. That is okay. That just means that we went and joined them all together, and Blender doesn't really know what that kind of means right now. All right, so step 6 here, we're going to try and do this remesh again. Blender does crash, so I'm going to change the voxel size. Again, that's how big those little nice squares are. I'm going to put it back to the default settings here of 0.1. And then I'm going to come down here and do the remesh button. This is all step 6. So once I hit that lovely remesh button, hopefully it won't crash. It's going to take a minute and we can see all of those lovely arms and legs and head and body parts melded together. So step 7 then is just starting to smooth them out, making sure that those look well together. So the smooth tool is that lovely little first red tool. I'm going to go ahead and start smoothing these areas out for us. I'm also going to be turning on my symmetry tool, so everything I do on one side happens on another. And then I'm going to be making that lovely nice frog shape. So I'm going to be pulling out the back end to give it that little bit of a tail. And then I'm going to be pulling out the front end and overall smushing its body to give it more of that lovely like frog real shape. I'm going to bring out the face more. Start getting it that good detail. So you can already see this is already starting to look more like a frog than it was before. Alright, and now I can really start smoothing out those areas where we see all those lines converge, all those big voxels where it doesn't look as nice. So we just want to make sure those are nice and smoothed out so that our frog is going to look nice and smooth. And as you can see here, the toes seem to have gotten stuck together. That's okay, these things happen. So when we have two pieces of geometry that are too close, they make that little bridge when we hit that remesh. So we're not gonna worry about that too much. Our frogs can have a little bit of a deformality. It is totally okay. Every frog is unique and special. Make sure you get underneath here, under the arms, down here at the bottom. Definitely try and get those lovely hands going on. Might want to be careful though, you know, places like the little elbows might be too much. Same thing with those fingers. If we try to smooth those, they're just going to turn into these weird points. So we're not going to focus on them too much right this second. So now we can see the frog definitely looks a lot smoother than what we started, and to even make it a little bit more smoother, I'm going to go ahead and do a remesh yet again. This time I'm going to turn it down to make those voxels smaller, those nice squares that we see. So I'm going to do 0.05. Go ahead, hit that remesh, and you can see those voxels became nice and smaller. And that's gonna get us even a smoother, nicer looking frog. So now I can start going back in on the arms, really start smoothing out those hands and a little bit even on those fingers. Not too much though, we still want to keep those, nice plumpy areas for us. Definitely get that neck nice and good. Just to do that, I make my brush nice and bigger. That makes the smoothing look nice and seamless compared to what it was kind of looking like before. We don't want to see any of those lines connecting. So to do that, I just make my brush a bit bigger. So now we can go ahead and back down toward the legs, smooth those areas out. And again, making my brush a bit bigger so it looks smooth. And again, I'm not too worried about these toes back here. It's just a little deformality. It happens. It's totally okay. Now let's see. Step 8 here, we're going to go in and start building up the face or the eye socket area. So we want those eyes to have a nice good home. I'm going to go ahead and get the clay strips tool. And I'm going to start just building up that nice curvature where the eyes are going to sit right inside there. I'm also can hit Alt and it'll dig in and do a reverse of that clay strips tool. So not only am I building up, I'm also taking away. And because I have that symmetry tool on, it's happening on the other side as well. So if you see I go to try and smooth it out, however, it's not working quite the best, so what happens is I might need to do another remesh here. But that's okay, I like to build up. Definitely going to start smoothing things out to get the overall look so far. I think that's looking really good. Again, just kind of going over, making sure those eyelids look nice. And then trying to make that mouth tool. Trying to make that mouth. So I grab the crease tool. The smaller the crease, the more precise that little line is going to be. And we're just trying to get the overall shape of the mouth right now, really digging into it. And the more times I do it over and over, more crisp and nice that line is going to become. Now right now if I try to smooth it all out, it's going to become a little weird. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to get the clay strips tool, or just the clay tool, I'm sorry, and go over that top lip. Frogs have their lips come out over top of their bottom lip, so I want to kind of give that a bit of an effect here as well. I'm also going to go over my eyes yet again with the clay tool, just because I really like working these eyes. So now we can see we're starting to get a really good, nice frog. I'm going to get the blob tool and I'm going to start putting in some warts, so I can just hold down and let them happen, or I can hit Alt and do reverse ones and make tiny little indentation warts. So if I do warts on one side, I do still have that symmetry tool on, so they're happening on the other side as well. So I'm going to do another quick remesh. I'm not going to change how big I want everything, but doing that nice quick remesh also really helps that mouth area. It also really helps that mouth area, because now I can get it nice and smoother than what it was before. Same thing with those eyes. Nice, a lot smoother than how we had it. And now next I want to make sure that we can also have an indentation in between the eyes and make sure those eyes get even bulged up more. We're going to kind of exaggerate a bit of the features. So this is all kind of incorporated in step 8 with really adding in those finer details. So I'm just moving down in the area between the eyes, making sure those eyes really pop out. And now that's really looking like a nice frog. And just to make sure that mouth looks just as good, I'm going to go ahead and get that crease tool again, really dig in there. Again, the more times I go over it, the deeper that crease is going to be. Awesome, and so now we get to go into step 9, which is making the eyes. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the extra sphere that we had over here. I'm going to pull it towards our frog and get it right into position for our eyeballs. So we're just going to scale it down, move it into that eye socket position. Awesome, so now it looks like we have one eye. And then step 10, we want to make sure we have one on the other one. Step 10, we're just going to mirror modify over onto the other side of our frog. And now we have these lovely eyeballs for our frog. Our frog looks really good. And then if we want to, step 11 is just adding some lovely coloring onto our frog. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in shaded mode. I'm going to make sure I have colors on him. And I made him a really nice green, almost like Kermit the Frog. I hope you guys really enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more from us.